Hiring is reaching a critical point. Today's workforce systems are struggling with rigid structures and slow processes that no longer match how work and organizations actually move. I'm here in Davos during the World Economic Forum to speak with Rebecca Carr, CEO of Smart Recruiters, an SAP company. We'll dive into the future of work and how AI can support a modern and intelligent workforce. Rebecca, first of all, welcome to the studio here in Davos, and of course, welcome to the World Economic Forum. It's a pleasure to have you here with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
So you've been in the recruitment industry for many years now. You have a front row seat to the landscape. Give us an overview. What's working right now? What's not?
Well, I obviously look at the future of work from a technology perspective. It's my job to enable organizations to sort of embark on this next chapter. And one of the things that I would just observe is that the technology that most organizations are using is not actually fitting of what they need in this moment. I mean, there's tons of business applications being used. In the recruiting tech space, we see our customers use about 20 to 30 different applications to support a recruiting workflow. As if you can imagine, each of those are different interfaces, different silos of information that are disconnected. And in a world where you need to be so much more agile and much more adaptable to sort of what's coming at you, AI is bringing forth experiences over interfaces. Those systems are just not fitting of the moment. And so technologists like myself are trying to solve this problem really quickly while also partnering with customers on understanding what this change means, what it's going to do to the organizational structures of their business, and how employees are ultimately going to respond, because it can be a very uncomfortable thing.
So what shift do you think companies and organizations really need to make to stay ahead of this curve and ultimately to get the best talent possible?
First of all, I'd say most organizations have very disconnected data sets. And the first thing I say to people is, if you're going to start to use AI technology, if you're going to start to really get good value out of these new tools, it's important that you consolidate those data sets, that you normalize them. When I first started my career, I built recruiting CRM systems. And one of the challenges that we had back then was that data sets that come in from candidates or employees are fundamentally a bit dirty. Think about like a location. You could say that you're from SF or San Francisco or San Fran. And it's important that those companies normalize that into a single nomenclature that's easy to search and index, and to do that across all systems. Now, you add the complexity of something like skills. The way you describe a skill like being a great communicator could probably be articulated in 3, 4, 5 different ways. And so a lot of organizations are finding a way to normalize these skills taxonomies, bring all the information that they have across their organization into a single database, and then leverage that to power these experiences that would then be distributed by AI. So bringing data together, really an important thing that's not being done. And so the consolidation of experience is something that AI is offering us. You have a conversation with a singular agent. That agent should be drawing from around all of those tools in order to surface that information in one very simple to use interface. And the second is really, everyone talks about efficiency. Right now, candidates and employees are terrified. It's a really bad marketing jargon for "we're going to try to replace you." The reality is that at the end of the day, efficiency is about an integrated bottom line. Companies want to save money, and all those disconnected systems are adding to the expense of the organization. If you can combine all that data, if you can produce a singular experience, if that experience can provide employees value, then ultimately you're going to be able to drive more productivity and faster accelerated growth across your business. And that's ultimately the messaging of AI. You can now do a lot more with the skills that will never be agent-led. You can be a better communicator or connector to candidates in your recruiting workflow. You can learn how to interview people better so that we can bring higher quality candidates into our organization, versus approving a form, filling out, an onboarding journal, looking up performance feedback, that sort of thing.
Since you brought up the topic of AI, I think it's fair that we also discuss agentic AI. What's it going to be like now that we have AI agents as colleagues? I mean, what has your experience been like?
Well, it's actually pretty interesting because I'm part of a CEO advisory group. And one of the CEOs was telling a story about how she was sitting in her condo complex, like in the hallway, and listening to two founders down the hallway talk about building their company. And she realized in the moment just how different that they were thinking about organizing work. They were thinking about planning as distributed across agents and also people, and distributing jobs to be done in very like programmatic ways to each of these entities. And so she took that back and she said, okay, I'm going to take a job like customer success manager in my business, and I'm going to take all the jobs to be done, and I'm going to basically put them on a scale, agent-led to human-led. And anything that's an agent, I'm going to build an agent for, and I'm going to give it a name. And I'm going to introduce that person to my workforce. So an example would be, I'm preparing for a call. I'm writing a brief before I enter a conversation with a customer. And so I go on LinkedIn and I do a lot of research and I pull up and create a brief. Well, an agent could have done all that work for her. So she created an agent that she called Lincoln instead of LinkedIn. And now whenever her CSMs need to prepare for a meeting, they don't think I'm going to use an agent to actually prepare for this meeting and I have to go and remember my prompt and this is taking away from what I did before. They're thinking about it the same way I think about using an executive assistant. They're going, hey, Lincoln, can you just help me prepare for this meeting? And they're delegating a task to what feels like a persona that is relatable and engaging. And then Lincoln produces a brief and they use it in the meeting. And I think there is this like intersection of like human characteristic with agentic behavior that people are creating in order to build confidence and comfort in their employee ecosystem. And I found it a fascinating example that actually I've heard others are doing, and it's working.
Now, Rebecca, you've argued before that we're reaching the end of jobs, which is a very interesting statement to make. Can you just talk to us the thinking behind that? And if that's the case, what's going to replace jobs?
I don't necessarily think you having a job is going to go away. I think the container of a job will go away and that it will be replaced with work. The traditional job description that we have is far too static. If you were to we're sitting here today, if you were to take what we do every day, probably only about 20 to 30% of it would be represented in a job description. So what you're doing is already bigger than the container that you sit in. Organizations around you are planning work based on those containers. The reality is work needs to move at a very dynamic pace right now. And so as companies need new skills, they need to find those skills in the people that exist within their organization, regardless of their job title. And so I think that we will lean more into skill-based projects and work versus having a job that you have for 12 months and then you get promoted and then you move to the next level, that you will be much more fluid across an organization and you will move from project to project based on the growth and acceleration that's required, and less on sort of the title and hierarchy that exists today.
Rebecca, we've covered so much, but before I let you go, I have to ask you, you've introduced the concept of the fourth wall of work. Please describe to us what exactly you mean by that. How is technology going to break that down? And ultimately, what does this mean for the future of work?
I first started thinking about this when I got a lot of questions around the introduction of regulation to the AI use case. Obviously, there's a lot of concern from candidates around, are they being matched? How are they being matched? How are they being represented by these within these organizations as they're applying for jobs? And the reality is they should be a bit concerned because it's a black box. They fill out a couple screening questions, they provide their CV, they check a box that says I'm okay with AI being used, and then on average, far more than 50% of them never hear back from the company. So how was I represented? This is a wall that we create. The reality is, regulation is now saying to companies, you need to be very transparent about the fact that you're using AI and how you're scoring people. So what are they doing? They're putting a consent box on all these applications and saying, if you don't want to be scored by AI, don't check this box. They have just created the ultimate technical dilemma for me. Because on the other side, I now have a list of thousands of candidates, some of whom are scored and some of whom are not scored. And there is no UI trick on the planet that I could possibly use that would prevent the hiring manager from disregarding the people that were not rated. Your eye will go immediately to the people that are scored, and you're going to start there, even if the absolute best person is sitting in that box of unrated. And so I thought to myself, well, how can you encourage then people to lean into being scored and feel very comfortable with that moment? Well, you do that by being very transparent about the score as someone is applying. So as you're applying to a job, you're a good match. You are, a greater than a 70% match for this job as compared to other people in the application process. You're in the top 10%. If you have this skill, it would increase how much of a fit you have. Oh, well, that's great. Now maybe I can add that skill to my CV because I do have it and it would better represent me for this work. And if you're not a good score, maybe it's a good opportunity for the company to actually direct you to a job that you are a good fit for. Companies complain about the volume of applications, and some of that is because they're not transparent about exactly what the job is and needs to be. So I think being more forthcoming in that application workflow is really important to creating the right behavior in the use of AI by candidates in the application workflow, reducing volume to a certain extent, and ultimately holding companies accountable from a regulatory standpoint to the tools they're using, how they're rating, and why.
And Rebecca, just to quickly wrap up, how do you think regular individuals like you and I are going to find jobs in the future?
I believe that we will all have agents that understand us, that understand what we know, that are following us in our day-to-day life, that are capturing skills, and they will constantly be sourcing opportunities for us, which they will bring to us and socialize, almost like our personal recruiter, and we will decide if we'd like to opt in or not.
Well, Rebecca, it's certainly been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for giving us so much food for thought, and enjoy the rest of your week here in Davos.
Thank you.
Traditional workforce systems built for a slower era can no longer match the pace or complexity of modern organizations. Rigid job structures and limited visibility are holding back people and productivity, making a rethink of work, talent, and intelligence essential.